3, 2, 1.
Good morning. I'm Ian Gandel, the Chair of Alkane Resources, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the annual general meeting of the company. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands upon which we're meeting and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I also extend that to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples here today. I'm joined in Perth by my fellow board members, Nick Erner, Ian Chalmers, and online by Gavin Smith and Tony Lethlean over the webcast link from Melbourne. Also in attendance in this room are James Carter, CFO and Joint Company Secretary, Dennis Wilkins, Joint Company Secretary, and Helen Bathurst of Auditors, PricewaterhouseCoopers. Mr. Kieran Brown from Atomic Share Registries is also in attendance and will be the returning officer for the purposes of the conduct of the voting poll at this meeting. Questions on today's proceedings will be addressed towards the end of the meeting, after all resolutions have been considered today and have been put to the meeting. For those joining me in Perth, you will be able to ask questions directly during the allocated question time. For shareholders and proxies viewing online, you can submit your questions at any time. To ask a question online, press the Q&A icon. This will open a new screen. Type your question in the new Q&A screen, and once you finish typing, please hit the send icon or hit enter on your keyboard to submit your message. Please note that while you can submit questions as of now, I'll only be answering questions during the allocated question time. Please also note that your questions may be moderated, or if we receive multiple questions on one topic, amalgamated together. I remind shareholders that questions should relate only to the business of this meeting. Voting today will be conducted by way of a poll on all of the items of business. For those joining us online, if you are eligible to vote, please select the polling tab. Selecting this icon will take you to the voting screen and present you with your voting options. To cast your vote, simply select one of the options against each resolution. You will then need to click Next, and on the next screen, check your vote is correct and select the box next to Declaration to confirm your vote. Click Confirm to submit your vote. You do not have the ability to change your vote once confirmed. For those here in person, you can cast vote by completing the yellow polling card you should have received upon entry today. Please complete, sign and return the yellow card to the Atomic Registry staff at the registration desk. If you have lodged your votes by submitting a proxy voting form prior to the start of this meeting and you would like your proxy votes to stand, you do not need to take any further action. I now declare the voting open on all items of business. Please submit your votes at any time. Voting will remain open for 5 minutes following the formal closing of the meeting, at which point the poll will be closed with results posted on the ASX announcements platform later today. As a quorum is present, I declare the meeting open. The proxies received for each item of business are now tabled and displayed on your screen. I declare that, as chair of the meeting, I will be voting any available open proxies in favour of each resolution. The financial report for the year ended 30th of June 2022 is now tabled. The auditor, Helen Bathurst of PricewaterhouseCoopers, is available to respond to any question on the financial statements or the audit during the allocated question time. I refer you to Resolution 1 regarding the adoption of the remuneration report. This is an advisory-only resolution, and I consider the resolution as displayed on the screen as having been read. The proxy votes received during this resolution are also displayed on the screen. I now put to the meeting and move to the next item. I now put the resolution to the meeting and move to the next item of business, which is Resolution 2, regarding the re-election of myself, Ian Gandel, as director. This is an ordinary resolution, and I considered the resolution as displayed on the screen as having been read. The proxy votes received on this resolution are also displayed on the screen. I now put the resolution to the meeting and move to the next item of business, which is the re-election of Mr. Ian Chalmers as director. Resolution 3 regarding the re-election of Mr. Ian Chalmers as a director. This is an ordinary resolution, and I consider the resolution as displayed on the screen as having been read. The proxy votes received on this resolution are also displayed on the screen. I now put the resolution to the meeting and move to the next item of business, which is Resolution 4 regarding the approval of the grant of performance rights to the Managing Director. This is an ordinary resolution, and I consider the resolution as displayed on the screen as having been read. Proxy votes received on this resolution are also displayed on the screen. I now put the resolution to the meeting and move to the next item of business, which is Resolution 5 regarding the approval of the grant of performance rights to the Technical Director. This is an ordinary resolution, and I consider the resolution as displayed on the screen as having been read. The proxy votes received on this resolution are also displayed on the screen. I now put the resolution to the meeting and move to the next item of business, which is Resolution 6, regarding the approval of the grant of restricted performance rights to the Managing Director. This is an ordinary resolution, and I consider the resolution as displayed on the screen as having been read. The proxy votes received on this resolution are also displayed on the screen. I now put the resolution to the meeting and move to the next item of business, which is Resolution 7, regarding the approval of the grant of restricted performance rights to the Technical Director. This is an ordinary resolution, and I consider the resolution as displayed on the screen as having been read. The proxy votes received on this resolution are also displayed on the screen. I now put the resolution to the meeting and move to the next item of business, which is Resolution 8, regarding the approval of the Alkane Resources Performance Rights Plan. This is an ordinary resolution, and I consider the resolution as displayed on the screen as having been read. The proxy votes received on this resolution are also displayed on the screen. I now put this resolution to the meeting and move to the next item of business, which is Resolution 9, regarding the amendment to the Constitution. This is a special resolution, and I consider the resolution as displayed on the screen as having been read. The proxy votes received on this resolution are also displayed on the screen. I now put the resolution to the meeting and move to the next item of business, which is Resolution 10, regarding the renewal of the proportional takeover provisions in the company's constitution. This is a special resolution, and I consider the resolution as displayed on the screen as having been read. The proxy votes received on this resolution are also displayed on the screen. I now put this final resolution to the meeting, and as all of the resolutions to be considered today at today's meeting have been put to the meeting, we can now move to question time. Firstly, to those present in person in this room, do you have any questions on any matter considered today or for the auditor? No, thank you. I'll then turn, I'll now address any questions that have been asked via the online facility. Dennis, are there any questions that have been asked remotely?
Mr. Chairman, there's one question that's come in from a couple of shareholders, which I'll amalgamate, which refers to the intention with respect to your holdings of shares, whether you continue to sell.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll give a fairly succinct answer to that. I have held my shares without selling a share for 15 years, and there comes a point in time where one actually does have other things going on in one's life, including in business. And I have very limited opportunity to sell or to buy. And as a result, I had to go through the appropriate process to be able to sell. I am still over 20%. I'm the major shareholder of the company, and it's my intention to maintain that. Whether or not I sell any shares is actually a matter for me. And at the end of the day, I do intend being a long-term shareholder of this company. So.
Mr. Chairman, there are some other questions that are more operational, which are more appropriately addressed after the Managing Director's presentation. So I'll also state that there are no other questions in relation to the business of the meeting now.
Perfect. Thanks, Dennis. So, Nick, now we've got the conduct of the poll. So we'll now move to the voting. And as mentioned earlier, voting will be by poll. For those online, if you have not already done so, I invite you to vote using the function available on the meeting platform. This function will be available for the next 5 minutes, after which the poll will be closed. If you would like your proxy votes to stand, you need not take any further action. For those present here in the room, please complete your yellow polling card and hand it to the Automic registry staff. Thank you all. I now declare the formal part of today's meeting closed, and thank you for your participation. The results of the poll will be released to the ASX later today. I'd now like to invite our Managing Director, Mr. Nick Erner, to provide an update on the company's results for the year and an insight into what we can expect in the year to come. At the conclusion of Mr. Erner's presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask further questions. Shareholders viewing online can use the same question function to ask questions of Mr. Erner, and we'll address as many as we're able to at the conclusion of the presentation. Over to you, Nick.
Thanks, Andy. You might want to mute your microphone so we don't get feedback. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, people online who are on the east coast of Australia. This is the first time I've tried to do a hybrid presentation. So I have people in front of me. For those of you online, I have people just here in front of me. And for those who are right here, I have a camera right here in front of me. So forgive me if you feel I'm not looking at you and I'm looking somewhere quite strange. But that's the nature of the hybrid presentation. So welcome, everybody, and welcome. And I really encourage you to ask questions at the end of this presentation. This is our disclaimer. It's available online. Basically, the thing I really want to refer to is in there, all the announcements and information I'm going to give you is all referenced in our announcements, which are already available online. So last year, or this last financial year and this calendar year, it's a pretty good year when you really consider everything that's gone on in the world. I'm often wondered, as we watch the whole market somehow broadly collapse and people's faith in junior gold evaporate, people seem to forget that current Australian gold price is over $2,600 Australian, and our margins have largely been maintained through this period. It's something that's a little bit phenomenal for the junior sector of gold at present. If we look at ourselves as a business, we exceeded our guidance last year. I'll go into that a little more further in the presentation. We put out initial Boda resource, thanks very much to Ian Chalmers and the team, at over 10 million equivalent ounces, and we'll talk more about that and where we think that's going, the activity we're doing. The Roswell resource, as we drilled it out, grew by over a third, and we'll talk about how we're putting that into the mine plan and where we're going with the New South Wales government there. So we now have a mine plan extending well beyond 2030, and I'll talk about where we intend to add to that further still. Our all-in sustaining cost last year was below 1,500 Australian dollars an ounce, which puts us in pretty good shape compared to most of our peers, particularly here in Western Australia in a predominantly fly-in fly-out environment. And our investment strategy yielded results. We certainly had substantial profits on our transaction as we crystallised our investment in Genesis, which we hold a small holding. And I'll talk about that more. I'm happy to answer anyone's question. So you look at those things and you think to yourself, you know, that's a pretty good year. And it's certainly set us a platform that we want to build off for this coming financial year. One of the most exciting things I think that happened through us during the year, which is one of those moments that comes in a production asset like Tomingley, is we passed a 500,000 ounce milestone. Now, certainly, you know, down at Cadia, they're pouring that, you know, every year. So it gives you an idea of the scale of the asset that we have. But, you know, that's the management team there in front of the digger, the open cut digger. But I just want to take a moment to reflect. So the board, many of whom are still current board members, made the decision, you know, I joined the company as we went into construction in 2013, but that decision was made in 2012, 2013 to go in on effectively quite a line ball net present value with the plan of producing 380,000 ounces from open cut and underground. And certainly the gold price rose, putting our faith in that. The asset base was better than we had in our plans, but was as good as we hoped. And so what I really want to draw is this is the nature of gold mining in Australia. This is the nature of an orogenic gold deposit where exploring everything from the surface down at depth, which is very expensive, you don't tend to do that. You get a profitable plan, you make a commitment, you take a long-term view of the gold price, and our view has certainly been vindicated. And here we are, 500,000 ounces, and I'm going to tell you today about the next 700,000 ounces that we intend and beyond. Thanks, Dennis. So this is a slide that we've used for a while, and I subtly change it because a lot about our business is the same. We have a reliable production base at Tomingley, and we have a substantial exploration portfolio where we continue to add value time and time again for the business. And we have done deals to create value or to try and grow the company, and it's depended how that's turned out for us. So if we look at those things, you know, we have consistent mining performance. The team at Tomingley we have is excellent. We have very low turnover in amongst our senior and management personnel. Majority of people there are residential. They live in Dubbo, Tomingley or Parks or surrounding communities. As a result, you have a competent and stable workforce in an area of New South Wales with a strong mining history. And we get excellent performance from that team. We have an exploration team of probably nearly 30 people now, including all the field assistants. And we have excellent discoveries. If you look at our history, going right back to Peak Hill, Tomingley, McPhillamys, the Dubbo projects, some of the Channel Iron deposits became BC Iron. All of these, this is a testimony to the exploration team, but each one of these things has a low incremental cost and a high turnout of value from exploration, which is why exploration and that risk-taking nature is at the heart of our business. We try to do deals to create value. So we're not trying to be a portfolio manager. We're trying to look at companies that we think are going to come into development, are unloved by the marketplace, and then see, can we create a larger company or can we create value and money for the company using our expertise? And that's proven to be beneficial. And I feel like we're entering another point of that market cycle where it's going to get harder and harder for people to raise money, where near-term developers can create opportunities for companies like ours and other existing producers. So certainly that's another part of our business. And so that has led to the financial strength we have now to go into our next phase of investment. We have a bit over $120 million in cash bullion and investments. Our underground equipment is the only debt we carry at nearly $14 million. And, it's, of course, I'm going to say that the board has extensive management experience over the full mining life cycle, but I'm the youngest member of the board and I've nearly been 30 years mining in the industry, as is Jim, the CFO. So, we're starting to learn a few things. So that's, the type of company that you have and why we continue to get good results, particularly in a mining environment where seasoned professionals are more and more difficult to find. Thank you, Dennis. Also this year, one of the steps we took was to significantly tell people more about what we do on the ESG front. So we, as you can imagine, being in a local community environment and very familiar with getting projects approved, long tradition of landholder access, consultation, a lot of work with our local Aboriginal people as well. You can imagine that we do quite a bit on the ground. And so we thought, let's make sure we tell everybody about it this year. And we particularly broke that out in our annual report. So I encourage people that are interested in what we do to look at that. Casey Martin featured there, was one of our underground operators. Long history, we're lucky enough to have her working for us. And we nominated her for the State Mining Awards. She went on the National Mining Awards for Operator and Tradesperson of the Year. That's the quality of people we have in our business. And it's operators like Casey that give us excellent performance. The social psychology of risk. Mining, particularly underground mining, is a inherently business with an elevated degree of risk within it. Not as risky as farming, but certainly risky. And so all of those risks need to be managed. And one of the key things about it is you might know everything, but you still might make a choice in the moment to take a risk. And so we run programs that particularly focus on people's mindset and positioning as to why they take risks that they do, and then working on those aspects as well as the rules-based systems that exist. We've been consulting with the community around Boda. We've done meetings in that. We've sponsored a whole heap of stuff within the local community, as you'd imagine. We did report one incident. We had 180 millimetres of rain in 48 hours, which is, quite a large amount of rain. And one of our sediment ponds overflowed and into another stream. We did all the things required, and the EPA reported that to the EPA, who, understandably said, yes, we understand that could occur. That's not what your licence conditions are designed for. And we continue to plant biodiversity plantings, in this case fuzzy box, because we do impact tree and grasslands communities there. So these are the type of things that we do. We report that, and we want people to know that these are the kind of things that have always formed the heart and soul of our business. This is what we do. This is what mining companies do. And now that it's a lot more transparent for people to understand what we're up to. Thanks, Dennis. So for those that aren't familiar with where we're talking about, we are particularly talking about, in this next section, I draw you to the map on the right. You've got the North Molon Porphyry project 2/3 of the way up the screen. That's where Boda is, that we'll be talking about, in between Wellington and Dubbo there. And then we're also talking about Tomingley, which is off to the left. Everything here is about 4 hours drive west-northwest of Sydney. So Tomingley operations. This is a map on the right-hand side of the screen from Tomingley, the mining lease in black up the top, right down to Peak Hill, where we had a mine that operated from 95 to 2004 and fully rehabilitated. So let's look at that. I've already touched on some of these things, exceeding our guidance. Next year's guidance, we think, will be 55 to 60,000 ounces. We had a smashing first quarter, did close to 20,000 ounces, and continue to perform well this quarter. The results for that will come out in January. So, I often get the question, well, why don't you upgrade the guidance? Well, mining is an inherently risky business, and you may have noticed, but it's been raining a fair bit on the East Coast. So we tend to want to be confident in what we're doing, and we felt that the risks were still too broad and the variables were too broad to narrow in that guidance. But we hope to be able to do so in January. Obviously we would hope to be exceeding guidance. And on the cost environment, very, very volatile cost environment, particularly on input costs, things like steel grinding media, fuel, they are starting to stabilise in New South Wales. So we hope to be able to narrow those bands in January as well. Our underground is performing well. The mining cutback at Coloma is performing well. And our resource base continues to grow. And I draw your attention there, the total resources now for TGO and the Tomingley Extension Project, which we now have integrated into our life of mine plans, are approaching 2 million ounces. And remembering we've already mined over 500,000 ounces out of that. And so I'm going to tell you now what we're doing there. After I reflect on this, sorry. So we have a history of meeting or exceeding production guidance. And I particularly want to address, I saw a question come in on Zoom rather than through the forum around mining reconciliations. Yeah, we traditionally over-reconcile, meaning that when we mine a block of ore, we think, well, this is going to be 2.05 grams per tonne, and it comes in at 2.15 grams per tonne. Now, Ian can go a lot more technically about this, but the geostatistical modelling that occurs tends to exclude outlying incredibly high values of gold, which particularly occurs in areas of visible gold. When we then mine through those areas, it's not like they've vanished. It's just that we couldn't accurately say that they were consistent holistically through the entire ore block that we model. So we are inherently also conservative in the way that we go about that. People can be more aggressive. That's what happens. And we have been in some of the higher grade portions of the mine, particularly under Wyoming 1 at present. So we have a historical reconciliation across the whole ore body that we've mined of a bit over 10%. That trend is broadly continuing at the moment. And of course, we hope that we've carried that conservatism down into Roswell, which is what gives us the confidence to go and develop that off that existing resource. But what I want to show you is on the right-hand side, we are in that sweet spot for mining, which if you look at the last 12 months, you see the grey's got a little bit lower, so we've produced another 60,000 ounces, but the blue's gone a little bit higher, so we've added not only that 60,000 ounces, but more to the resource. So that's the sweet spot we want to get into, and I'll talk about why we think we can do that again going forward. And that is through the Tomingley Extension Project. I had a whole heap of slides I could put here, and I thought, what's the most relevant slide? The most relevant slide is the physical things that we're actually doing on the ground. In the north, up at the top of the picture, you see that's the Wyoming 1 open cut. To the left, that disturbed land that you see is us in the early stages of developing the second residue storage facility to the immediate south for the next phase of mine tailings. But the red that you see is the development drive, the exploration drive that we already have almost at Roswell. And Roswell, you can just see at where that blue starts to get a bit, it goes almost through like a cross-shaped figure at the bottom of the screen. That is the different declines starting to go up and down at Roswell. So we're right there. And the reason we've teed off is on the right of that, as you look at it, is where our next vent rise is going to go. So we are absolutely ready to set up that for exploration. We've got mine just to the bottom of that blue is where we're going to set up grade control and exploration underground, which is the whole purpose of the exploration drive. And then that will be converted to a production drive on approval with the New South Wales government. So we're in very, very good shape here. We expect project approval prior to the end of the year. The reason why I say that is that we have given the New South Wales Department of Planning and Environment, who bring it all together on behalf of the New South Wales government, all the different inputs that they need, bar one that goes in this week, which is around the final mine crest design at San Antonio at Roswell. And all the other boxes have been ticked, and we're tick-taking with them. So we expect that they will look to turn that out before the Christmas holidays begin. That may kick over, and of course we have a whole heap of contingency plans for that, but we do expect that it should come before the end of the year. What happens then? Well, what we do then is things flow logically. So what I mean is you get your license for your driver's license, then logically they must take a photograph of you and must send you the thing in the post. Exactly the same thing occurs here. You get your project approval and they must grant you the mining lease, but you have to fill out more paperwork to get that. In particular, you have to go into much more detail around the rehabilitations plan and the staging of that. So that's what will occur. So if we get approval before Christmas, then we should have all the management plans and mining lease granted before the middle of the year, such that we can develop underground ore mining and bring ore out from Roswell in Q4. So we are very close, less than 12 months from that. So, but as I note, by the middle of the year, we expect to be there with the ore drives, taking the samples, which is the purpose of the exploration drive, reconciling that and setting up grade control drilling. As well as that, just where that you see the blue of the vent rise, just to the right of that on the picture is Maclean's, which we put out the most recent announcement on. Maclean's is our most likely area, apart from at depth at Roswell, of adding to the resource more than our mining depletion in the next few years. So we will be there setting up grade control drilling, or not grade control, sorry, resource drilling on that in the coming quarter. As I noted, the second residue storage facility is already underway. We're deep in the upgrade engineering for the process plant. We have already agreed with Transport for New South Wales more than 50% of the detailed design for the road diversion, and that continues to climb as we do design iterations with them. And we've already pre-ordered the culverts that are going to form the basis underneath that, and they're under construction as we speak. We've purchased additional water licenses in case we need them. Needless to say, we've got quite a bit of water stored, so we're not likely to draw on that for some years. But you know, if we find that in the future we need that, we have that ready. What I'm really telling you is it's all systems go in normal project delivery land, and this is something that we do every day, and we continue to do that. So we look forward very much to updating you on that, and we look forward to increasing production in Tomingley over the next 2 years. So on to Boda. Boda is a very, very exciting prospect. And the reason why we say that is, if you look at that picture on the left, we're approaching 5 kilometres from bottom to top, which when you think about it is quite a distance, right? That's multiple Sydney Harbour bridges. And if you think that from end to end, it may end up mineralised and that all might be economic, that's a substantial amount of tonnes. We already have over 500 million tonnes at a gold equivalent grade of 0.5 gram on a 0.3 gram cutoff. There are mines already mining grades lower than that profitably around the world. So what we have to do now is work out how can we add to that resource? What's the economic sequencing of that? Because you know, money matters in the way that you pay off the original capital. How might it be mined? How might it develop? How might that impact the community? And so on and so forth. And that's the work that we're doing. And so I certainly encourage, you know, everyone who's one of our shareholders to, if they've got the time and we, you know, we'll continue to communicate as much as we can on this, to understand the nature of porphyry systems. I often get asked, isn't this quite low grade? Well, not for a porphyry system, but yes, for an orogenic gold system, but they're not the same thing. This isn't Tomingley. This is a large-scale porphyry system that we hope one day will have the hallmarks of Cadia to the south. Certainly Ian can, or I can answer many more questions on that. But this is Boda. And so I'll tell you what we're intending to do with that in the coming 12 months. The RC program at Kaiser is complete. We're still waiting on the results for that. So in the next few weeks, we expect to put out our final RC results or near final RC results for the Kaiser system. And then our geological team in Orange is working on the initial resource. We expect that in the coming quarter. We are already have drills in place to, and you can see on the map there on the left, or the section on the left, you can see the drilling density at Boda 2 through to Boda 3 is less than the drilling density at Boda, realizing that that picture is a whole, sort of all our drilling just, you know, squashed into one section. And so we are increasing the density of drilling at Boda 2 and particularly targeting the high grade system that we know and the structural geology that we know. So that's occurring at present. We're drilling at depth at Corridor, you know, so up to the northwest of Boda. Why are we doing all of that? Well, about by this time next year, we intend to have upgraded the Boda resource again to include all of that and taken the middle section of Boda through to an indicated resource. And so what that would mean is that that allows us to then start doing more detailed mine planning and then start to do very, very early staging discussions with, you know, potential offtake partners in the future and other people who have a 10-year look ahead for the way they structure their businesses. much as has been done with coal and iron ore and many other projects over the years. So that's what we intend to do. And as well as that, we're pretty excited about some of the grassroots work we're doing to the northwest again at Connigan that you see on your map, through to Drill Creek and then right up to Murga in the top left of the screen. So we have a team, a large team working there. Probably 2/3 of the team, I'd say, Ian, is working on Northern Molon Porphyry project. And we intend to be hitting that hard through the coming 12 months. In addition to this, we are doing the very, very early work that you would expect us to do around flora, fauna, water sourcing, how might transport and logistics work, where might power come from, all of these questions that need to be unravelled in order to add value for the project. That's the work that we're doing. So that Mike Sutherland and the team there will be working on that, and Ian's team will be working on the exploration. So we're very, very excited about that. And I don't think that we have substantial value reflected in our share price for this project yet. And so one of the things I'll be doing next year as well is going into Europe and North America, marketing the company to people that get porphyry projects. So hopefully we can gain some traction there with overseas investors. Next slide, please, Dennis. I put this at the end because, as shareholders, we're generally pretty familiar with this, but what I really want to highlight here is our cash and gold position. I get asked by some people, why are you holding all that cash and gold? Well, I've just outlined a pretty substantial capital investment program to you all. We are putting that money into Tomingley to take it through to being a 100,000 ounce producer and take its mine life beyond 2030. We're putting it into the ground at Boda with the view of creating a tier 1 asset that should, we think, have multiples of value created for shareholders. That's what we're doing. And you can see that broadly our institutional ownership there is about 22%. We want to get more institutions interested in us and showing people that this is a long-dated option for the company to grow value, as well as a lot of the short-term excitement that comes from an orogenic gold deposit like Tomingley with stable production. Next slide, please, Dennis. So reiterate our priorities again for this coming calendar year. Get that Kaiser resource out. Test the high-grade extensions, the thing that I talked about up and down through the Boda corridor. Get that Boda resource upgraded, which should be quite substantial after another 12 months. The Tomingley project approved. Complete the exploration drive. Get underground mining pumping, and then get the upgrades going for both the process plant and the paste fill plant for underground. And of course, we'll continue to monitor and enhance our investments in what I think is going to be a particularly dynamic environment for small and mid-cap companies in the gold sector in the coming 12 months. So thank you all. And, the questions are open. Myself, well, any members of the board are quite willing to answer any, and far away from the room or.
Right, so let's start off with, are there any questions from the room for Nick or Ian? No. Dennis, online questions?
Yeah, Chairman, one which I think has been addressed through Nick's presentation, but he might just want to address it. And that was the company's enthusiasm for the Boda resource and what its potential is. So I know Nick addressed it, you might want to just elaborate on it. And for the benefit of those online, I'm not too sure my voice is carrying, so you might just repeat the question. It's just about the enthusiasm for the company's Boda resource.
Yeah, sorry. So the question that Dennis asked, which came in online, was, is the company still enthusiastic about the Boda resource? Yes. I could certainly add to that, but I think we consider that a very, very high value proposition for the company. So increasing that resource and having that reflected and understood by investors, we see as a pathway to adding value, as our exploration has many times before. Yeah. So a question from the within the room here is whether Boda would initially be an open cut or an underground. The answer is that the resource as it stands at the moment has potential of both open cut and underground, and both, probably even sub-level caving or caving underground at the way that it looks. Logically and normally, an open cut would be the starting option for that mine, yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. No, it'll be treated the existing plant. Sorry, not Tommy. Sorry, it'll be treated on site at Boda. Sorry, the different mineralogy would build a whole new processing facility at Boda. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. Yeah. Yes, it would an entirely standalone project. Yes, we wouldn't truck it anywhere. Yeah, I originally thought we were saying would we truck the ore somewhere else, but no, we would treat that build a new processing facility and treat it on site at Boda.
Okay.
One more from a shareholder online, Mr. Chairman, directed at Mr. Chalmers around the plans, if any, to test the eastern boundary around hole 5, where we reported really strong assay results for both hole 3 and 4.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. I've just unmuted myself, so hopefully the video audience can hear me. The answer is we have a very good understanding of the outlines of the mineralisation, the alteration zone, which form the deposit. We're very confident on that eastern margin. That's not to say at some stage in the future we may not go back and look at it, but at this point in time we think we have the eastern margin of the deposit fairly well identified.
Yeah, I can certainly field that question. You know, we're always open to how to make money for Alkane shareholders. And if we look at Calidus at present, or any other junior companies with a depressed share price, the question is, why is their share price depressed, and what value can we add, and how can we make money from that? So yes, there's always potential for us to increase our position. Now, I know this sounds silly, but there's also always potential for us to lighten our position if we think that enough value has been achieved. But certainly, we remain always in discussion with Calidus. Jim and I were on a site visit there just a few weeks ago, because we're a 10% shareholder in the company, and we of course keep dialogue open about whether anything could happen in the future. But at the moment, we think there's a lot of opportunity both at Calidus and elsewhere. But we remain to look at their progress as they continue to work through the different issues that they have in the current quarter.
No more questions.
There's a question from the floor. Yep.
Still hold shares in ASM. I'm not too sure what.
No, we don't. The question was, does the company still hold shares in ASM? No, at the time of demerger in 2020, Alkane as an entity, from that moment held no shares at all in ASM. It was only us individuals as shareholders that held shares in ASM. So we have, since the time of demerger, have not ever held shares in ASM.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today. That concludes the annual general meeting. For those in the room today, you're invited to stay for light refreshments, and to everybody